In this video, I'm going to show you all about this guide rail square, which brands it works with, the 6 things I like about it, 4 things I don't like about it, 2 tips to make sure you get the squarest cuts possible. I'm going to show you whether it's accurate or not. And if you watch to the end, you'll be rewarded because we're going to give 3 of these suckers away for free to some of you. Welcome to the HQ. It's 104 degrees outside. I don't want to get a heat stroke in my garage doing a YouTube video, so if it's okay with you, I came inside for this segment. How this works is pretty genius. You take your square and you get a little adapter that clips in here, and you take your cam locks and you screw them to the hole and you're good to go. And all you need is a screwdriver. Pretty easy. When you slide this into your guide rail, you squeeze these together and it clamps with this ridge. It's as simple as that. If you're wondering what brands this works with, the Makita tracks, Festool tracks, PowerTech tracks, and Wind tracks are all basically the same. So you can get the same setup with those colors. There's also a Craig ACS option, a DeWalt option, and I think Bosch and Ryobi are in the works as well. So basically any of the main track saws that are out there, you can get a kit for this. On a macro level, I love that this is a genius design. It's an outside of the box answer. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh man, why didn't I think of that? It's brilliant. It's simple. The second thing I love is the price. As I mentioned in the opening, to get a guide rail square, this is the cheap version of the TSO. The more expensive versions can be $179. If you go for the Woodpecker adjustable track saw square, you're going to spend $300. These can get really expensive really fast. And I love that if you already have the square for 35 bucks, you can get in. If you want to spend an extra $15, which I would recommend to get the support tab right here, totally worth it. And even if you need to buy the square for under $65, you're getting an accurate solution. That's 60% off from buying the cheapest TSO square. And while this is affordable, the quality of these parts are top notch. 3D printing can be 3D printing, but these parts don't look or feel like they are 3D printed. I know the owner of Tool Theory, and these are the best 3D printed parts I've ever seen, way better than the stuff that I'm able to produce. Bradley uses some of the most expensive filament you can find, has some very high-end printers. In my opinion, these parts are awesome. Fourth thing I love about this is it's American made, American designed, American produced, and American shipped. As a Texan, I appreciate that. Another thing I love about this is it uses the exact same amount of reference length as the TSO does. So you're not skimping on that. The last thing I love about this, and the most important, is that it just works. It's accurate. It slides into your track super quick. It's not hard to tighten down, not hard to attach. And as I'll show in my test in a moment, it's accurate, it works. The most important part. There's 4 things that I don't like about this option, and they're not deal breakers, but they are considerations because they might be important to you. They're not important to me necessarily, but you should know about them. The first is you have a reduced track length because of the length of this piece. If you use something like the TSO, you have a usable length on a typical 55-inch track of 49¼ inches. So that is enough for you to cross-cut a full width of plywood that's 48 inches. But if you seat this all the way, you get 43⅛ inches. Now you can cheat it a little bit. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. But the closest you could squeeze out of a typical 55-inch track is 48 inches, cheating this out a little bit. Then you have a big piece of metal sticking out of your track. That may or may not be a big deal to you. It's not really a big deal to me. I think there's ways to work around that, but it's a consideration you should know. For 78% off, I'm fine with that. The second thing I don't like is because of its size, it doesn't fit in my sustainer like my TSO square does. This was the first thing I noticed when I got this, and it kind of bugged me. But the more I thought about it, I'm not sure that it's a big deal because I've owned my track saw for 2.5 years, and while I love the sustainer case, it has never left my garage or my house. I've not taken this anywhere. In my case, I really don't need a rail square to be able to fit in the case because it doesn't go anywhere. I work from my garage, and this was happy in my garage. It's fine. But if you're a traveling carpenter and you are taking your saw from job site to job site, that may be something you want to consider, is how you're going to protect this, how you're going to move it, because it's not going to fit in this case. The third thing I didn't like was the assembly. At first, it took me a while to figure out how to assemble this because I got the cam locks backwards. Not a big deal, maybe a minute of undoing it and redoing it. But once you get it set up, it's fine. It's just that first assembly, you've got to think a little bit on how this works. The last thing that I don't like is that you're not able to use a ratchet clamp with your track and this clamp from the cutting position. You could clamp your piece on the back end, but I like to cut mine on the front end. I don't know why, convenience. It's one of the cool things about the TSO is there's a little cutout here where you can nest your clamp. Obviously on a square like this, it doesn't have that. Again, not a deal breaker because I rarely clamp down my materials, but when I need to, it's nice to know that I'd have that option on the TSO. That's a consideration for you as well. Again, those 4 things aren't deal breakers in my opinion for my use case because the value of getting something like this for under $65 if you got none of the parts is pretty amazing when you compare it to the commercial machined aluminum versions out there. Since accuracy is a big deal, it's important that you get this thing to be as accurate as possible. And there's 2 big problems with going with this direction. The first is over time, dust or sawdust or debris can get in this groove, can get in your track, and can get along this fence. And so if for some reason you're getting inaccurate cuts, check to see if there's any debris in between the fences and your workpiece, just like you would at your miter saw or your table saw or your crosscut sled. The second is recognizing that these affordable squares are mass produced and the tolerances aren't always great. In fact, I've bought some of these smaller ones that turned out to be really off. And so when you're picking out your square, be very judicious and find a way to measure your square at the store. Now this is kind of silly given the fact that I'm doing a video on how to save money on a square, but I have a $120 woodpecker square. I actually took this to the store and measured all of the squares to make sure that I got the best one. So if you have a square that you know for certain is square, take it to the store and check because you'll be surprised at how off these cheap squares are. This one was pretty good. Surprisingly, I found some Milwaukee squares that were way off, and I am going to trust woodpeckers over Milwaukee and Home Depot every time. Yeah, it's still kind of hot outside. I did the 5-cut test twice, measured with really expensive calipers, and here's what I got. I'm suddenly conscious about my legs. Are they okay? Stop looking at my legs. According to a lot of people on the internet, your tolerance standard that you're going for is 0.001 inches. Anything within that tolerance range of squareness or accuracy is generally accepted. And Jonathan Katz-Moses backs this up. And if Katz-Moses says it's good, then it's basically the Bible because Moses, Old Testament, you know. So I was seeing if I got my error per inch to be within that range of 0.001. Surprisingly, I got an error per inch of 0.0007. Both times I did the test. I reached out to my Math Wizard friends and they confirmed that I was doing the calculation right and that was pretty accurate. If you look at the relative difference, it's 30% more accurate than the standard tolerance most people shoot for. But if you look at the actual difference, if you take the standard of 0.001, you're 0.999 accurate. This Empire square that I got was 0.993 accurate, however you say that. Obviously, with this solution, the quality of the square you buy or have is the limiting factor. These don't really factor into the accuracy. So making sure you get as square of a square as possible is really key. I was honestly surprised that for under $14 at Home Depot, I was able to get a square that gave me an error per inch of 7/10,000ths, which is really good for $14. You are awesome. There's no way that I could make these videos without you, without your viewership, without you subscribing to my channel and liking the videos I put out. See what I did there? In an effort to make this video a win for some of you, I asked Tool Theory if they'd give 3 of these away, no matter the brand, to 3 of you, and without a pause, said absolutely. So there's a link in the description below that takes you to the entry page. Enter to win. In a few weeks, we'll pick 3 winners. I'll email you. We'll get these sent out to you. They do not include the square. You will either have to have the square or go buy it for yourself, but we're giving away the 3D printed parts for you to assemble one of these yourselves. So go check that out. If you're new to 3D printed accessories, I've got a video right here that you should check out, especially if you have a track saw, where I talk a little bit about some 3D printed stuff that I've made for my track saw. Peace.